Hello everybody, this is Sherry at djsundry.blogspot.com. Today I have a special project for you. It's a project that is for the Getting Cricky Simply Sunday Challenge, and it's my first official design team post. Now, I've been promoting the stamps for quite some time, but this is the first post that I am doing specifically for this particular challenge. So I am going to show you some of the products I've used as well as some of the tools, and then we'll talk about which stamps I've used, and then we'll get going. So I'm using 3 different colors of ink. I'm using my good old-fashioned black ink pad. This is just an old Excelsior ink pad I had. And then from the Seasonal Distress inks from Tim Holtz, I'm using the Gathered Twigs and the Ripe Persimmon. Also from Tim Holtz, I'm going to be using this Alterations Texture Fade, and it's the Thankful background and borders. Now, I'm not using the borders for this particular project, I'm just using the background, and I've set that aside. I also, from K & Company, I have these little raised dimensional embellishments, and I'm using, on some of them I'm using the circle, and others I'm using the square. I have 3 different paper packs that I'm using. This is, I'm not sure who this is from. I assume it's probably from Joann's. I have a huge stash of craft colored cardstock because I use it quite a lot, and this is just part of the stack. I use that. I've used this Cypress fashion color from the Paper Company. I believe you can get this at Hobby Lobby, and I've used 2 colors from that. I've used this dark brown and then this more toffee colored piece. And then pulling out my good old Recollection Spice Market cardstock paper, which by the way is almost gone. I've used it a lot this fall. But from that I'm using 3 different papers. I'm using the kind of burnt orange and the deep yellow, as well as the kind of, I don't know, olive green, I guess you would call it. I have this old Zig Ryder pen that I'm using. Have a little piece of toffee colored organdy ribbon that we'll be using. And then I have my tools. I'll be using my Cuttlebug, which is probably mostly off the camera frame because I just ran out of room. And then I'm using my, I'm not using this. I was going to use that ruler and then I changed my mind. I'm using my Crop-A-Dile corner chomper, and we'll be using the 1/8 inch side, and my normal Crop-A-Dile. You'll need a good pair of scissors, and then I'm also using my distress tool. Now, the only adhesive I'm using in this particular project is foam adhesive squares because I want to give it some dimension. And last but certainly not least, I'm using several stamp sets. I actually chose 4 stamp sets for this. For the inside of my project, I'm using this set, Scripture Sayings, and I'm using the one that says, I thank my God every time I remember you. So that will be on the inside of my project. I'm using good old trusty Falloween, and what I'm using for that is Thankful. Then from this is one of the newest sets out. This is Crafty Friends, and from here I am using the words, let me see where they are, oh, right here, From the Heart. And then from Amazing You, all I'm using from this is this little heart. And you're going to see how versatile these stamps are and how I will use them to mix and match into sentiments. So that's what we're going to be using, so let's get started. Now, the criteria for this month's, or this week's Simply Sunday Challenge is to do a project. It can be any type of project that you wish to do, reflecting something that you're thankful for. So I had planned, my family's coming over for Thanksgiving, and every year I either do or have my daughter do some type of a card or a place card to do for them. And this year I am choosing to do something a little more than what I've done in the past. I'm actually going to be doing an A2 size. Now, this is one that it was just a practice one because I did it upside down. But this is the piece that I'm using, and you'll see I took an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and I cut it down the middle at 4 1/4 inches. Then I scored at 5.5 inches and folded it in half and made a good tight crease. And this is going to be the cover of our place setting card. Now I wanted it to go a little bit further than that, and I wanted it to be also a menu and just a little keepsake that each of my guests can take home. I had originally planned on having 19 people, and we just had a family member today that couldn't make it, so I'm down to 14. So each guest will receive and get to take their place card home, as well as the contents. This is the inside of it. Again, this is the craft cardstock, and this says Thanksgiving 2011, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment on it here. Then when you open it up, we've got our menu here. And then my father-in-law is a poet, and I had my mother-in-law send me a copy of a poem that he had written that was specifically about being thankful, and that is on this page. And then when you turn it back, it's just blank lines, and it says things I'm thankful for. And I actually have to tell you, this was all done on the computer, and my husband did it for me. I can do this part of it very well, the computer part not so well. So he got that all designed for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is making sure that my fold is at the top. I'm going to run this through the Cuttlebug using this alterations folder. Now, normally if I was making a card, I would run it through the folder, and then the back would be adhered to a card base or something like that, and you wouldn't see the back side. But in this case, what I decided to do, because I didn't want a lot of layers, and the reason I didn't was kind of an economical reason. I wanted to be able to get two of these from a sheet of paper, but past experience had told me that this is just about perfect for an A2 size card, and I don't want to lose any of it. And so I didn't, if I went wide enough to put this on a separate sheet of paper, then I would have either missed some of it, or I would have only been able to get one from a separate sheet of paper. So I just decided to go ahead and run the whole thing through, which means on the back this will show, but it's still kind of neat because on the inside it's the same as the front. So this is the way our card will look, or our place setting will look, and I'm just going to set that aside for a minute, and let's do our stamping. So the first stamp that I want to use is the scripture saying stamp, and that's the I thank my God upon every time I remember you. And I'm just using my black ink pad because that matches the text of the inside of my place card or place card menu, and I'm just going to line that up and stamp that right like that, and that's it, just simply right in the middle. Now let me just grab something to clean off my stamp, because it will be sitting for a while and I don't want it to be permanently black, and then I'll set that aside. So now the next thing that I want to stamp is the inside pieces. So what I did with this one, and it looks like I put one aside. So what I did is I took a piece of this toffee colored paper and I trimmed it to 1.5 inches wide by 4 1/4 inches long. And now I'm going to use my corner chomper, and I just want a very subtle corner. So I'm going to use the corner chomper and just use the 1/8 inch side so that I have a rounded corner, but it's just barely rounded. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Gathered Twigs Distress ink and my inking tool, and I'm going to ink around the edges. Now I've already inked around most of the edges of this, I just left one in blank. And then I also want to do the same thing to the front of my place card holder. Now I've done several of these. This is actually my last one to make, and I have inked around the edges of all of them, even though one of them is a brown one. You can barely see the ink edge, but actually I like the way it looks. And then I want to set that down, and then I just want to lightly go over the top. I'm not trying to highlight all of that embossing, just some of it, just to kind of give it just a little extra dimension without adding extra layers. So I've inked that, and we'll just set that aside. And now what I want to do is I want to stamp my sentiment on my sentiment place. Now I'm going to use the Distress ink in the Gathered Twigs, and I'm going to be using 2 stamps for this. The first one is the Thankful stamp from Falloween. And what I'm doing is I'm combining stamp sets, 3 different stamp sets, to get one stamp sentiment. And it's wonderful that you can mix and match like that. So there's the Thankful, and then from the Crafty Friends it says From the Heart, and I want to just kind of center that kind of down low and stamp that right like that. And then I'm done with that ink, so we'll just set that aside. And then using the right persimmon, I'm going to do the heart from Amazing You. Now I didn't want to use red because it doesn't go with either the fall or the color scheme at all. So this is close. It makes you think red, but it actually blends with the colors. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp that, but it's actually going to overlap some of the sentiment. And the way Distress inks work, it just looks like it's very layered right on top of each other. And you can still see the script from the brown ink coming through, and it turned out really well. So that's my stamped image. Now this is another piece that I made, and with this one I just took a 1-inch piece by 3-inch piece, and using my scissors I just cut little tails in that, and I'm going to write this particular guest's name right on this little banner. This one is for Katie, and then this is where my little embellishment from K & Company is going to go right next to her name. I've got that already there. So I have my embellishment. So I'm going to adhere these with foam squares. Now right now I'm just going to put the foam squares on the back because there's another step that I want to do to the, I want to put the menu inside the cover before I put these on, just to reduce the chance of mashing it. So I'm fairly generous with the foam squares on that larger piece just because it takes up so much room, and I don't want it to collapse in the middle. So now what I'm doing is I'm lining the inside up on to the outside here, and then I've taken my Crop-A-Dile, and on the 1/8 inch size I have moved the measuring guide clear to the back because I want about 1 inch, 1.25 inches in from the outside edge, and that's where I want to make my holes. Now my original plan was to make something larger than this and to use my Bind-It-All to make books, but I just ran out of time, and actually I think now that this project's almost done, I think I kind of like this better anyway. It's just very simple. And then we will run our ribbon through and tie it in a bow, and it's simple binding. It doesn't take up a lot of bulk, but it is a nice addition at each place setting at the table for Thanksgiving. So just get that tied. And with these bows, this organza is really stiff ribbon. It's not a soft organza or organdy ribbon. And sometimes the bows end up being, well, most of the times, the bows end up being a little bit crooked, and you can kind of play with them. For this particular project, I really didn't care if it was a little bit crooked. But now we have, it's being held together. So now let's just adhere this to the bottom, and we're just about done with this project. I'm going to adhere this to the bottom right about there, I think. There we go. And then the banner that has the guest's name on it, I'm going to put kind of at an angle up here. And so then it says, Katie, thankful from the heart. When I think of the things I'm thankful for, my family is at the almost at the very top of the list, only behind God. And Katie's not quite family yet, but soon will be. So this is the last one of these to make. So thanks for watching. I'll put links to all the stamps that I use so that you can check them out at kandrewdesigns.com and look into purchasing those from her. Thanks and have a great day.